Hey, it's Chris. Gear 5, baby! If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a reference to the shirt, which is a One Piece thing, and Luke, you just hit Gear 5, hit all white Super Saiyan style of things. But that's not why you tuned in. You want to know what's coming up this week on crowdfunding on the tabletop side of things, which, again, segue, why don't we have a good One Piece or other anime game? That's a whole nother topic of conversations. But 3 games I am really interested in, 2 of which I have firsthand experience with in this house right now. One of which is very reminiscent of another game that I already reviewed this year that gives me good tingles, and another similarity to another all-time video game. So it actually started out as a joke. What game was that? What do you need to know? Interested? Piqued? Intrigued? Let's do this. So what do we got going on? First up this week, well, on the 22nd, we have one of my favorites of all time coming back to crowdfunding. Level 99 decided to go back to crowdfunding, and they are bringing us more Exceed in the form of Guilty Gear based off of the video game series. And I just love this game. This is a game, just like another game that's coming out back to crowdfunding next month, that I got it out again, and I was just instantly reminded once I started playing how much I freaking love this game. I mean, because you have games in your collection, right? They get lost in the shuffle, games that are harder to get to the table, games that you go, should I get rid of that? And then you play it again, and you go, holy crap, and that's Exceed for me. That's one of the ones for me that I just go, wow. Now, I'll be honest, I liked this guy much better than the other guy. But that's okay, because you know what? They're going to have 20 different characters coming to crowdfunding. And the big thing with this campaign is that they're going to have acrylic standees as well as playmats. So that's really going to be the incentive, because the playmats and the acrylic standees have not come to wide retail distribution. It's because the last season of Exceed, they did the Under Siege, whatever it was. They pre-ordered available those, but they afterwards weren't not available otherwise widely at all. And so that's going to be the incentive. I got some metal coins here that are just kind of nice. You use them as health point trackers. So I just a regular mat here, which is, again, has some interesting differences. It's got a nice area. If you want to know more details, I actually put a review out in the last week and a half or so, running you through what Exceed is in general as this 1 versus 1 Street Fighter-esque dueler with characters of asymmetric powers, abilities, where you just play one card or one action per turn, and you go back and forth until you knock the other opponent out. And each style of things, Street Fighter, this, the Under Night Siege one, all of the different iterations sort of have this different gimmick, this different mechanic, and this one is no different. Has a great one. It simplifies a little bit, but it doesn't make it any less interesting. So this is by far and away, I'll tell you right now, the most interesting one for me all month, period. Because of how much I love this as a whole. And they sent me the demo deck, and they were offering the demo deck not just for me, but for like anyone who wanted to get it. And they were offering it earlier this month on their web store in case you missed that. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but you can always check it out and try and pick up a copy and see if it's for you before the campaign ends. Because, again, cannot recommend this game enough. This game is probably in my top 15 games of all time. Yep. Flat out. There you go. What's the price point going to be? No idea. No idea. But, if you love it, you go for it, right? There's very few things I say that about. So you can see how intrigued I am and how much I love this. Now, the second one actually is sitting in the box right here next to me. And Semi Lasco and Snowdale Design, they just forwarded it to me from someone else who's going to be covering the campaign. And this is Peacemakers Horror of War. Now, you may look at this in the Lands of Galzier, in the Dawn of Merchants, Dale of Merchants realm, same world. And it's a remake of a earlier version of the Peacemakers game that was one of their first ones. I think in like 2017, if I'm remembering correctly the date. But this is a 1 to 4 player cooperative version where you're trying to prevent the horrors of war. And it's really doing something kind of cool from a cooperative side of things. I just got it today in the day I'm filming this in the mail, so I might not have the video out by the time the campaign launches in the middle of the week, but I'm hoping to have it out very shortly afterwards so I can give you my thoughts on it. Because if you know me and anything I talk about in this channel, right, like I'm a big co-op fan. And sorry, 2018 for the Peacemakers, Dawn of Peacemakers original version of this. And they say this is an evolution of it. So basically, hopefully a 2.0 edition with pretty drastic differences, and allowing you to say this one is better, this one is the one you would get of the two of them, which, I always feel mixed about saying, but I also want the better version of things. But maybe it's going to be more like Nemesis Lockdown, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with the base game, but as soon as I saw this one, I reached out to Sammy, and he was nice enough to have someone forward it to me, so I really appreciate that, so I can give you some thoughts on it. And, you know, characters with unique asymmetric strengths, set up faster with different groups and different abilities, and individual scenarios instead of having to do an individually long linked campaign. And if you're anything like me, right, what's easier to get to the table? Individual scenarios. Why is this game thought of so good? Because individual freaking scenarios. Easier to get to the table, gets more play, just that aspect of things. And if it's anything like Lands of Galzir, I'm imagining this is probably going to be pretty close to the final design, because Sammy doesn't come to these crowdfunding campaigns super early with the designs in the first place, as evidenced by the previous couple. Yeah, I'm just kind of excited to see what it's going to bring, and I'll have a video out hopefully in the next week and a half or so, so I can give you more of my thoughts and more details on it with more explicit pros, cons, and everything else in between. Who's it right for, and should you do what you want with it in the first place? So, I don't know. I'm just really excited by it, as you can tell. I mean, like, I'm super pumped about this upcoming week. I just want to see what more goodness we have coming out. And now the last one is going to be another interesting test, like I sort of alluded to at the beginning of the video, right? As my teaser. We have Dungeon Kart from Brotherwise Games. Now, if you're not familiar with this is set in the Boss Monster world, right? Boss Monster Duel, that element of things, the tile laying version of it as well. But this is sort of like your Mario Kart, and that's why I'm really intrigued by it, right? It's gonna be Mario Kart meets Boss Monster. And the other thing that this really gives me reminiscent feelings of is, I gotta make sure I pronounce this right, otherwise I mess this up every time I talk about it with my kids. Dodos Riding Dinos. And that is a highly, highly underrated game that is looked at as a kid's game that's actually incredibly fun with anybody. And so if this is slightly more adult version of that, boom, you've got a real hit and winner on your hands here. We know that Brotherwise likes to put out and can put out very good games on crowdfunding. I've got Castles by the Sea right here behind me, and that one did really well. I was really surprised at how much I like that in addition. And so if they put another campaign like that, although I don't really need the screen printed meeples, that was a mistake by me. Nothing on them. But that's really what I'm looking at, and I'm going, okay, well, you know what? Boom, there you go. Show me what you got. And that could be 3 for 3 on a week where I don't typically endorse anything nearly to this extent. So that's why I'm intrigued by it. We don't really have a whole lot more information, though, at this point. So it's going to be sort of a wait and see as well when that campaign goes live. And the other alluded to portion of this was, I believe, a sort of April Fool's joke for Brotherwise Games. I don't know if it was this past year or like last year that they sort of like just pulled random pictures of like hand-drawn stuff of this on the social media on April Fool's. And then people were so excited by it that they were like, okay, let's do it. So I just think that that's kind of cool. And I love seeing that sort of thing in our hobby. And again, if it's done with the quality of these other stuff, with any of those other ones I mentioned, either this one or the Dodos Riding Dinos, man, you've got money on your hands. So there you go. So what else we got going on? Well, I'm trying to sell some games. I just need to make some space. My wife bought me another Calyx as a surprise, just more for storage in here. And so I finally got a little bit better organization, even though I've got this huge pile of stuff, because like I mentioned, like 5 games came literally today in the mail. And I think she's like scowling at me like, we just cleaned up the kitchen and the kitchen table and the kitchen counter, and now it's getting crowded again. And I was like, oh, sorry. So I've got to do that. I've got to sell some games. And so I'm going to probably be posting on some social medias this weekend with some updated prices of just stuff I want to get rid of. And so I can make some space, because, as stuff comes in, I need to get rid of stuff too, because I'm just running out of room, and I've got a lot of good stuff that I don't really also want to get rid of. So just kind of all over the place from that standpoint. I got to get some stuff played. I have a couple other upcoming crowdfunding games in September that I need to get played. I've got one right over here that I played and loved as well. Speaking of games that reminded me of why I loved them in the first place. In case you can't see it, that's Mythic Mischief. And then I actually got to play the Stan Kordowski game. I'm mispronouncing his last name, I apologize. I always mess that one up. The Resurgence game, the Euro-style post-apocalyptic in the line of Dead of Winter, but more Euro-y game last weekend. I was actually relatively impressed by that. That one actually was better than I thought it was going to be. I kind of liked it more than I thought. And it really does give me Dead of Winter vibes if you just took out a lot of the, potential, or maybe not all, but a significant portion of the randomness. And so if you're looking for like a Dead of Winter style game with less of that, I think that's a absolutely fantastic replacement. It doesn't overstay its welcome. and it's just well put together. I can see why people like it, which makes me want to get, what is his more recent one, The Age of Rome, that came on crowdfunding. Now it really makes me want to potentially pick that one up. That one got a lot of hype, but not a lot of funding. Sort of like Resurgence, actually. Very similar, eerily similar in terms of the hype and lack of funding at the same time, which always confuses me. But it sometimes happens with these indie publishers as well. So I was really happily pleased by that one. Now, is it going to be a forever keeper, though? That's going to be the interesting test of the market, because not that it's not a really good game, but is it going to get to the table over other things that are really, really good? And that's where I'm a little bit split right now. If you missed my review of Wayfarers of the South Tigris from this past week, go check it out. If you missed my best of July, I also posted that earlier in the week. And I played 31 new games last month, and I told you my top 5, as well as debating what to do with Ark Nova and Earth, and whether or not either of them are going to stay in my collection, whether or not I really liked either of them, and are they really some of the best games that have come out over the past couple years. That's a whole nother, I should just do a whole nother video on that and rile some real feathers up with that one. That's what the video I've actually been meaning to do. I need to get Dwellings of Elderville played, and then what I'm going to do, and sit down and say, these are the past 3 top games of the last 3 years, respectively, potentially, with hype and with big name people, and how do I feel about them? I don't know. Not to be a contrarian, but just, I think the most important thing about our hobby as a whole is reviews are not objective, right? If someone gives a review an 8, if someone gives a review a 10, if someone gives a review a 6, that's their own bias outstanding. However their preference is, and however much they try and separate that out, there's always an element of that, right? Like, I know lots of people, as I mentioned earlier, my love for Exceed's a 10 game for me. It's not going to be a 10 game for a lot of people, right? But whether or not it's a 10 game for you is what's more important. And so that's how I look at that, is, sometimes I feel like reviews are taken as, this pedestal. I feel like sometimes reviews are put on a pedestal, and they're like, well, so-and-so said this is a good game, so therefore it must be a good game. So-and-so said that this game is not good. They did not like it. So therefore this is not a good game. And that's the reason I don't, in case you didn't notice that with any of my reviews, that's the reason I don't numerically rate any of my reviews. Now, then again, I think a lot of the other side of things is people want to get their brand out there at the same time. And so that's why you see a lot more people nowadays coming up with little special symbols and insignias and recognition bullets, so that people can, especially publishers, put that out there as well. And again, that's a double-edged sword. It helps people, but also it's just it's just weird to me, right? And maybe I just need to get a golden whatever, right? Pear is taken, right? Golden star is taken. Golden Darth Vader helmet. I don't know. Side note here. We call my youngest kid Panda. Just kind of one of those little kid nicknames, right? When they're young, and somehow it gets started, and you just, he knows his nickname's Panda. And so lately, they were watching a bunch of Star Wars on vacation, and so he's never seen half the Star Wars movies, right? Never seen or know half the lore. It's like, Dad, right? This is before he turned 3. Is Darth Maul a bad guy? Dad, is Darth Raven a bad guy? Is Darth Bane a bad guy? Is Darth Vader a bad guy? Right? So finally, the other day, I started calling him Darth Panda. Ooh, he does not like that. Ooh, he has not. It has a nice ring to it, though, right? Like Darth Panda. You can kind of see that, right? Pandas are black and white. Anyway, I don't know how I got on this train. I don't even know how I'm ending up at this point. But, oh yeah, symbols of, So what should my symbol be? I'm trying to learn some GIMP, G-I-M-P, the photo editing software. So maybe I can come up with something clever on there when I actually learn how to do it. I just started doing some tutorials yesterday. So, and someday maybe I'll be able to actually have some decent graphics or decent thumbnails. Who am I kidding? I can't do any of that worth crap. I'd like to have some fancy intro that, you know, I've got the little ending one now because one of the guys who was my mentor when I started out the channel was nice enough to do that for me, and I'm super appreciative for him, by the way. Just really gave me a lot of good advice when I started the channel, and you know, I'd like to be able to do some of that myself because I'm not artsy, you know, like I'm math and science, right? And so like my drawing skills and my artistic side of things are pretty much pushed to the limit already with this channel, and so I need to push myself a little more, you know, learn some new stuff. So that's what I'm working on, and that's what you need to know. And if you want to know what else is in this stack of things sitting next to me that's going to get reviewed or played soon on the channel, you should be on the Patreon because I told them. So there. And I got to redo the Patreon page still. I'm working on things. I'm procrastination central here. A little bit. So that's all I got. That's all I got. Got rained on tonight at soccer practice. Kid had one of his first weeks of soccer practice for the tryout team. Not terribly impressed by the organization so far, but we'll see where it goes. There's definitely a different tiers, and I'm not terribly pleased because at the same time it feels like they're treating the team he's on as one of the lower ones with a little bit more kid gloves, and the other ones they're like, well, let's actually teach you some really useful stuff at the higher ones. And I'm kind of like, come on, you got to drill these kids a little bit more if you want them to get. And it's kind of like they're like not, at least from this small sample size of practice I saw, they're not necessarily doing that as much as I would like. And maybe that's just because it's the beginning and maybe they're trying to play catch up slowly with the learning curve, but I just it's going to be frustrating, I think, for me regardless. But he was very fearful, and he got to the first practice and said, I don't want to do this anymore, and we forced him to do it. And now we're 3 practices in and he's okay with things. So hopefully it'll continue that way. I'm sure it will. What can I say? Total ramble at the end here. If you're one of the 3 people that made it to this part of the video, I appreciate it as always. And you can let me know the number 37.5 down in the comment section below. Or, even better, tell me what my symbol should be. My golden symbol that I can put on the reviews of games that I absolutely adore and say that you should get no matter what, even though I don't put a number score with them in the first place. Because, there's forever keepers. Those are the ones that would get it from me, right? So, that's all I got. Have a great day. Stay classy. Do something fun. And, as always, as my 10th grade English teacher used to say, don't do anything I wouldn't do. But if you do, don't get caught. Just kidding. Asterisk, don't do anything that I wouldn't do, period. But stay classy. See you around.